And now, TK, our next game is Florida visiting Lexington, Kentucky to take on Mark Stoops Wildcats. You got Dan Mullen and the 3-1 battle-tested Florida Gators coming in there. Florida, as we've already mentioned, and everybody knows well now, they came up 2 points shy of Alabama in the Swamp, then ended up pouring it on late versus Tennessee. This, TK, may be my favorite game of the weekend. I'm going to be on the field covering the game in Athens. I'm very excited about seeing that matchup of those two teams. However, I am very intrigued to see if Mark Stoops and this Kentucky team takes the next step. They've been producing NFL talent, TK. They've built, got to a high water mark. I think winning 10 games a couple years ago under Stoops. Now, they've only beat Florida one time in the last 34 years. They did that under Stoops. But now we're going to talk about what's it going to take for Kentucky to be able to do that. Kentucky is an 8-point home underdog. So, TK, what are your thoughts before we give our picks here? What are kind of your thoughts leading into this matchup?
Like you said, bro, I think it's probably one of the most exciting games of the weekend, especially for a dog fan. You want to know who's that next person in the East, and this is that game. I think this is the one that says who's lying second in the East behind the Dogs, in my own opinion. But I honestly think that Will Levis and that Kentucky offense they're due, man. They're due. They looked really, really good and poised early on. Yeah, early on. But he kind of called some guys out, called himself out, and now it's time to own up to that accountability. And like you said, can they do it again? Is Kentucky real? Is Kentucky really real? You've got all this talent, this NFL talent. Now, kind of almost like a Texas A&M with their recruiting. What is that talent going to do for you? What is that talent? What do you have to show for that talent? So I think this game is huge for them. I think that Wan'Dale Robinson has to get involved early. He normally gets 1 or 2 touches in the first half, and then they start pounding him.
He had one in the first quarter against South Carolina.
Yeah, you got to take some shots against South Carolina. So, I mean, I think they got to get him involved early because with the ball in his hands, and again, he's a Swiss Army knife type cat, one of those guys you can just use and put anywhere, backfield, slot, out wide. So I think they got to get the ball in his hands early to get him going, open things up, really.
Yeah, and I want to, just throw it out there. Some people were thinking I was saying that it's watching our last show on Wednesday that Emory Jones not playing well. That is not what I'm saying at all. Emory Jones is playing well. What I'm worried about for that Florida team is, are they one-dimensional in the fact that at some point this year, someone is going to come up with a scheme to hamper the running attack from Florida out of Emory Jones, right? Not every game he's gonna go off for over 100 yards rushing and things like that. So when they do, is he a consistent enough passer and reliable enough passer to be able to win a game? I think Mark Stoops is a defensive-minded coach first, very much like a Kirby Smart, that is going to come up with a game plan that is going to test what Dan Mullen wants to do. Now, Dan Mullen in his own right, tremendous coach, so I'm sure he'll make adjustments and things like that. Also, the factor that I've got to see out of Florida is, can Emory Jones play well when he's being subbed out with Anthony Richardson? His best 2 games of the year, Alabama and Tennessee, he's not had to look over his shoulder to see if Anthony Richardson's going to come in for him. So mentally, how does he adapt? How does he play? I think the line is right on the money. Florida should be a favorite going into this game. And I think, the fact that it's in Lexington and they're still an 8-point favorite, that's a lot of respect for Florida. You're talking about a night game atmosphere with an undefeated Kentucky team where the fan base is excited. It's always like their version of the Super Bowl when Florida comes in there to be able to do it. There's been some great games in this contest, in this rivalry, even though Kentucky hasn't won. Many of them are only won one in 34 years. There's been some exciting contests in the last 5-6 years between these two teams. So TK, what I'm looking at is how does Kentucky's pass protection hold up against Carter, against Newkirk, against all Brenton Cox, all those guys there on that front seven for Florida that are really adept at getting to the passer. And Will Levis has not had time. Rosenthal and Kennard have struggled at tackles. They got bull rushed last week by two very, very good South Carolina defensive ends. People say, oh, it's just South Carolina. Those defensive ends that South Carolina has are both playing in the league, just so you know. They're both going to be NFL guys. So they struggled to pass protect in those situations. TK, what I'm looking at is, like you said, get Wan'Dale the ball early, utilize him in different ways. And people want to say, oh, Kentucky struggled against South Carolina. Here's what happened, guys. They had -3 on the turnover margin, and on TK,
it's tough to win.
It's tough to win, and on all 3 of those turnovers, guess how many touchdowns they allowed? 0. That is impressive. That defense is impressive for Kentucky. So if you're like I said, if you're watching on the 365 Sports YouTube channel, you can see Florida. They're rushing, for well over 200, and they're rushing for 323 yards per game, 264 in SEC play. Kentucky is only allowing 87 yards per game, TK, rushing in this season. So you've got the unstoppable force on the ground versus the immovable object, that old adage. Who do you like with all these factors going on? Who are you going to pick, and what's your score for this game?
I really think this is going to be probably one of the funnest games to watch of the weekend. But I think I'm gonna have to go with Kentucky. I think they get it done. I think that their defense is experienced. I think that Mark Stoops defense will be ready and poised and flying around versus this Florida Gator offense. We talked about Emory Jones struggling. I think
when Anthony Richardson plays.
Yeah, when he plays. So that's a worry. But I think that they'll force him to do the thing that I think he does worst, and I think that's pass. So I think they'll heat him up, put him in some situations, and I think that they'll come out on top. But it won't be easy. I think this game is a 24-21 kind of game.
Yeah, I want to pick Kentucky. Like I want to because of that defense. You got DeAndre Square that is just absolutely an animal. He fits in his run fits and just absolutely stops people's momentum. He will rock people's heads back. A real killer there at linebacker, DeAndre Square is. Then you've got, senior. Look, Josh Pascal, senior. DeAndre Square, senior. Jaquez Jones, senior. Tyrell
experience galore.
Yusef Crocker, senior. Marquez Bembry, senior. Marquand McCall, who is a freaking small house. He's 6'3", 380 there in the middle of that defense.
So a small house.
I mean, I'm telling you, he's a huge human being, 6'3", 380.
Double wide.
That guy is large, but Marquand McCall, he's going to be tough for that Gator offensive line. However, I think that Gator offensive line is so strong and so, cohesive right now. I'm going to say that I need to see, before I can pick a Kentucky in a game like this, I need to see them not turn the ball over. They've been turning the ball over at too high a rate. Josh Ali, too many fumbles. Chris Rodriguez, too many fumbles. Florida's got an opportunistic defense, not an elite defense, but opportunistic defense and a good front seven. I'm going to say Kentucky covers, but I'm going to pick Florida to win this one late in a close one, just going off historical, data here and that trend. I say Florida wins this one again, and I'm going to go Florida 27, Kentucky 23. I'm going to say Florida wins late, and I'm going to take Kentucky to score some points in this one. I do like them to get it going because I think Florida gave up some points to some cheapies to Tennessee, and there were more opportunities for Tennessee to score. But I'm going to say that that it's a more high scoring affair, and I'm going to take Florida